Okay.
Okay, another quote. The motive of our founding fathers was totally self-centered. It was their personal greed that inspired them to accept the task of writing the Constitution of the United States and not patriotism. In actuality, the United States is not a land or a place, it's a corporation, a legal fiction. You know, and you know that by now. And that fiction existed well before the Revolutionary War. The Constitution of the United States was written in secret by the Founding Fathers and was never presented to the colonists for a vote. Surely any document as important as this demanded the approval of the people it governed. Well, it wasn't prepared for a vote because the Constitution wasn't created for we the people. It was created by and for the Founding Fathers, their families, heirs, and their posterity. The Constitution is a business plan, and any reference contained within it that appears to be the safeguard of a right is there because none of the Founding Fathers trusted each other. The safeguards were intended to prevent any one or group of them from cutting out the others, proving that there is no honour among thieves. Americans are not unlike all other humans who inhabit the earth. All human beings possess malleable minds which are minds that can be shaped and controlled. And when government shapes and controls a mind, it's called brainwashing. Brainwashing causes a subject to become functionally illiterate. In America, our functional ignorance excels in the areas of history, government and law, which really are one in the same. 98% of the officials in public office are lawyers, and these so-called representatives set policy and created the laws that govern this society. Their use of Greek and Latin terms in law and the habit of changing definitions and usage of common words is intentional. The intent is to confound and confuse the general public and to hide the treason they are implementing, and so that members of the public are forced or decide to hire a lawyer out of frustration rather than try to represent themselves in our fictional courts of law. As you read on, I'll explain to you why and how our courts are and laws are fictional. There never has been a law on the books created by the Congress which made it illegal for a common man to practice law. Every judge of a district, circuit or appeal court, except magistrates and justices, is a lawyer and a member of the bar. These judges have the authority to establish local rules of court, and those mentioned have created a local rule that prevents common people from representing any person in their court or to practice law without a license. A license requires that you produce your Bar Association number. For those who don't know, the Bar Association is simply a lawyers' union, and when lawyers are accepted into the bar, they are required to swear allegiance to a foreign power. The American Bar Association is a branch of a national organization titled the National Lawyers Guild Communist Party, and can be found recorded in the United States Code at 28 USC 3002, Section 15A. They have become so big and entrenched that they no longer fear reprisal. Whenever I tell people that there is no actual law that makes it a crime to represent another person in court, their reaction is liar. I remind them that Abraham Lincoln and Clarence Darrow never went to law school or passed the bar, but their reaction is understandable because the bar is a very powerful organisation and its members have infiltrated every niche of American life and business. This all goes back to London. How many times in your life have you heard you can't practice law without a licence? Okay. He goes on, our American society has been lied to by their government and lawyers more times than you will sign your name in your lifetime, and we have been indoctrinated, brainwashed, to believe that the Constitution was created for we, the people. The purpose behind these lies is to make you believe that you are free, safe, protected and secure, and it's all an hallucination. How many of you have studied each line of the Constitution, the statutes at large and the Articles of Confederation, armed with a reputable dictionary or a law dictionary from that era? If you take the time to do this, you will soon discover that the true purpose of the Constitution was to create a business plan and to establish a military government for the protection of the Founding Fathers, the King's commerce, protection of his agents, and the future control of his subject slaves. Even the preamble of the US Constitution is a clue to the lie which states, "to ourselves and our posterity." If you never saw the title, the Constitution, and you were never told what this document was about, what do you think would be your first impression upon hearing or reading "to ourselves and our posterity"? The Constitution is not for we the people, and America is a matrix of misinformation. In the eyes of those in control, America is nothing more than a large plantation, and we the people are the slaves. In many US and world treaties, the term high contracting powers is used to define your masters. Everyone else is considered by them to be their slaves. All of the Founding Fathers had two things in common. They all shared the gift of a good education or were gifted individuals, and they all came from families of business and or substance. These men all suffered from visions of grandeur. They viewed America as their one opportunity to make them powerful and wealthy, to ourselves and our posterity. Initially, their plan was to steal America away from the king. Despite the fact that King George funded the exploration of the New World, which legally gave him first claim to all new continents discovered. Quote, "The seizure of the Americas by the king's explorers was not as it has been depicted in our history books, presented to us by our government, in our government-controlled schools. Native Americans, the Indians, were murdered, their villages burned, many were enslaved, infected by diseases brought from England, and their lands were taken by force at the threat of force by these early explorers. The Indians were labelled savages by these immigrant explorers from England, but the true savages were our English ancestors. One thing the Founding Fathers did not know was that all of the king's lands and all future acquisitions, such as the Americas, had been given and pledged by King John to Pope Innocent III and the Holy Roman Church by the Treaty of 1213. After that fact was proven to the Founding Fathers, King George and representatives from the Vatican decided to use the constitutional draft created by the Founding Fathers to further their plan to control the colonists. Control attained by bringing the colonists to their knees in debt. Any way you read it, the Constitution was never written with the intent of benefiting the American people. Did you know that 98% of the law schools in America and England do not include constitutional law as part of their law curriculum? The reason for this phenomenon is because constitutional law does not apply to or affect the enforcement of statutes, codes, or administrative regulations, which have replaced constitutional law, the common law, public law, and penal law, and which have been designed to control you. Example, constitutional law is taught as an elective at Harvard, Yale, and Cambridge, and only for students of law who are planning a future career in government. This should make sense to you as we read on. In the history of America, neither side won the Revolutionary War. At first, the appearance of English troops in the colonies was simply a show of force by King George, intended to intimidate the colonists and force them to pay him taxes. Factually, back in England, English soldiers refused to take up arms against colonists because they were English citizens and relatives. Here it comes. Mr. Mayer Amschel Bauer, founder of the Rothschild banking empire, by this time owned the king.